So, what is architecture? You can think of architecture, for those who don't know, really is about, if you put aside the compromises, it's really putting things together in a cohesive way to form a solution. You can think of it as a collection of components, not just physical components, but logical components, things you've learned, modules. Put these components and modules together so that they can cooperate and work together to form a cohesive solution. And in this case, when you have different components, the key or the magic really is to make these components work together in such a way with the least amount of effort, the least amount of time that it takes to maintain this kind of architecture. It's easy to grab a lot of components from all over the place, and this is another problem. If you tapping into that minefield of grabbing too many components because there's so many cool features from a technical side, that can be very, very costly and very dangerous. Keep in mind, your primary goal is to stay focused on customer, stay focused on the core domain of the business. It's not to pick the latest and greatest fancy features and technology that's out on the market. This may be exciting, but even myself, I have to step back and look at it. Okay, what's the best that will fit the business to make this solution really run well, not just today, but also to maintain it for many years to come. So these components are very critical. Every component that you pick in an architecture, you can think of it as a long-term marriage. Even though you might think this is a great component, it's maybe an open source solution or an architecture or a framework that you want to include, everything that you include into a framework, keep in mind you're going to have to pay the price and eventually understanding and maintaining it for many years down the road. And so it's very critical what kind of components you put together with the least amount of effort, the least amount of time. Keep that long-term vision in mind when you put these components together in an architecture. Very, very critical. I keep telling everybody I get in contact with developer teams, architects, business owners, stakeholders, especially on the technical side, on the developer side. It's very easy to add things. These libraries, stay away from resist the temptation to add too many things into an architecture. Trust me, it will help you in the long run. So when you put these components together, hopefully you'll form a solution that will work nicely, that fits the business, that fits the core domain of it. That's really generally what an architecture is. And I like to use the example of the construction industry. There are other examples in different industries, but in the construction industries, the term I believe started in the early 70s. There was a famous book. I forgot the name right now, but this famous architect, he actually published in his book an outline on the concept of components, onto building homes out of pre-manufactured components. And it's the same concept, really. You have these components pre-manufactured in the software industry. You have potentially libraries or frameworks, services nowadays, third-party services that you can have access to, and then put these different components, these logical components together. And so in the construction industries, you have things like bricks, even electric stove, as small as a bolt that keep things together, lumber, etc. You get the idea. So it's same thing. You put these together in such a way that it forms a solution, and at the end, you'll form, in this case, a home. And hopefully the people moving into this home find it very, very nice to live in, safe, secure, and functional. This is another point. Architecture has to be also functional. And so imagine you as a homeowner, you want to build actually a home, not buy a home, but you want to build one from scratch. And when everything is done, you move in and see there's no electric switches. Well, you forgot to tell the architect that you want electricity in your home, so there's no wiring, there's no switches. So that brings up another point. When you construct an architecture, and you made a mistake, and you will make mistakes, you should be able to come back in and add or remove parts of it. And this is where it gets really interesting. How do you replace potential pieces that have been deprecated over time, that are outdated? You need to replace it, or it's just faulty or buggy, so that it doesn't affect the rest of the architecture. So maintainability and being able to replace these components is very critical. So in this case, say I forgot the electric outlets. Well, it's going to be very, very hard to open up and rip up all those walls and put these switches back in. So it's not very modular in this case. So keep that in mind. Maintainability is probably, in my opinion, besides the functionality and delivering the solution, maintainability is the top priority you should consider. How do I maintain this architecture very efficiently without a lot of effort? Usually maintainability will cost you at the beginning when you define a solution. At the beginning you put an extra effort in making this modular so that you can replace when you need it. This affects your strategic design and then the implementation side of it as well.